of something. Yes.
We don't get to.
Yes.
We don't get to to clinically assign ourselves to that fact that okay, we're experiencing depression.
Right.
And of course it has a lot to do with, because we belong to the same community, right? It has a lot to do with how depression is stigmatized, or how mental health is equated to weakness in our community.
And then what is weakness? Like, it's not okay to be weak?
Right.
See, I also kind of feel like we're having a generational divide.
Talk
right now.
Please.
Just because, I don't know, like, me and my homegirls, we're not scared to say, like, today, I'm depressed. You know, or like, I'm feeling very sad today, I'm feeling heavy today, like, we've cultivated a language, and that's why I'm saying specifically me and my friends have cultivated a language with one another to where we actively seek to share when we're not feeling at our best, so that other people, specifically the sisters that we're in sisterhood with, can share that with us. So it's like,
welcome to the circle, where we tap into the journey of life, spirituality, and wellness. We are the BoujAunties.
Welcome to another edition of the BoujAuntie Experience, and today we have a special guest, Lexis.
hi.
Joining the BoujAuntie, Khadija and
Jameelah.
Yes, and so what's the topic we're talking about today, Jameelah?
So we're talking about a trending topic. I think everyone has seen it on social media, and since we're wellness griots, you know, women who tell stories through our experiences of wellness and producers of wellness spaces.
Look at all the things that we do.
We do.
Come through. Go.
Oh my goodness.
So, depression and how it shows up in Black women.
Talk about it. Talk about it.
You know.
So I saw a post that depression, Black women can be going through depression, but it feels like failure.
Yeah.
Right? It presents in that way.
Right.
We don't say, oh, I feel sad or I feel overwhelmed, but it feels like I'm not doing enough.
Right.
You know, I failed at this task that I was trying to accomplish, or this relationship, or so forth.
Right.
I think that rang so true to me, because you could be doing so much and doing like all the things and still look at yourself and go, that's not enough.
Yeah.
And so my question to that was, well, when is it enough? When does it feel like enough to you?
So to begin to answer that question, while you were talking, the word emotionality was coming up for me a lot. You know, the fact that historically we have always been seen as vessels that don't have feelings, or that can go the distance without being poured into.
Yeah.
You know, or just we have been left to be very resilient and to own our womanhood, as opposed to attach ourselves onto a particular entity like our men to produce like some sort of support for us, right? In a lot of ways, we have been left to really be very supportive to our counterparts and
Fend for ourselves.
To fend for ourselves, as they say. So I think that's where that kind of comes from. You know.
See, I would say, I don't think it's that we've been labeled emotionless per se, because I feel like we get called angry, bitter, like all of the emotional words definitely get prescribed to us. I think there's more of an attribution that we don't feel pain.
Right, that's
right. But I feel like as far as emotion, we're labeled as a lot of emotions, and I think realistically, the emotion that shows up the most in Black women who are depressed, or how like it presents, it shows up as like aggression,
right,
or anger,
right.
Especially
but not recognized,
not recognize that it's coming from a place of like insecurity or fear or anxiety or feeling sad or just any of those things. It's just like, oh, you're angry just for the sake of being angry, or you're angry because that's just how Black women are. Y'all are just angry, and it's like, no, I'm not. And the thing is, it's too for us identifying that we're not actually angry, that's just the presentation, and that presentation comes from, like you said, so many times us having to fend for ourselves, or so many times us having to be the protectorate of like everyone or having to be the glue for everyone. It still kind of comes from that similar
Right.
mechanism in place.
Right. So when I said emotionality before, not saying that we were emotionless or whatever word we saying that by people looking in to our culture, black women are kind of seen as people who can, not that, yes, we have feelings, but it's almost like hu- uh, our human traits aren't recognized all the time when dealing with us. You know, we're very invisible when it comes to things like emotions.
Well,
invisible to whom?
And that's the other thing. It does like come back to like a matter of perspective, because it is like you're saying, like, who do we want to be seen by?
Right.
And even when it comes to back to your first question, like, when is enough? I don't know that enough will ever really be enough, because for us,
for really, I was being, to be more specific, when is enough for you, right? Like for each individual person, that is the definition, you know, that you have to work with.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we could go to the us part. But when do you internalize? Like for me, my enough looks different at many different stages.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so one of the enough is, this is like my base enough where I've done it all and I feel exhausted and now I'm giving up.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, I've done enough. Right. Like I have nothing else to give. I feel overwhelmed. I don't feel supported. I didn't ask for help.
Right.
You know, and all the sadness, and now I'm just like, I'm giving up the ghost. Right. But that is to me is the illness enough.
Right.
The well-being, or getting to the well-being enough, is that space where I'm able to just accept that today I was sufficient for myself.
I think I have a baseline, like a daily baseline for enough, and then anything else that happens larger than that baseline is like cool. So my baseline for enough is, did I eat 3 meals?
It's sufficient.
Did I get at least 7 hours of sleep?
Right.
Did I shea butter my entire body?
And didn't miss the bottom of your foot?
Yeah, instead of like just my elbows. So it's like, oh, is my hair done? Or does it like look in a way that I feel realistically, like, do I feel pretty today? If all of those things happen in one day, anything else that happens larger than that always feels like I'm a superhero. Now, on days when those things don't happen, it kind of goes back into like, okay, I could have done more. But the more now, I've redirected more in toward myself and less towards like, how productive was I today? How much like work did I do today? Because honestly, I know that if those things aren't met, then it doesn't really matter to me how much work I did for the day.
Right.
And does that part is the part, right, when you get all the way to the side of where you're just thinking about what you've done or what you need to do. We spoke about this in one of the episodes where it was like, am I doing enough? Like even when you sit still, you move back into, well, is there more?
The productivity part.
And
of
I think there's something about that where when you are the responsible person for someone or someone's, right? That there's space for you to feel like it's enough for yourself, but as you sit, there's maybe someone who's saying, I need this. Or I need your presence, or I need, whatever. When it becomes so overwhelming that you don't get to, notice that your feet are ashy and, and you missed one butt cheek and, when you were shea buttering, you can go like that for years and not realize that you haven't loved up on yourself. Right. You haven't taken care of yourself, but you've taken care of everyone else. Right. And so and not well, but it seems like you have. Not well, like, right? Right, not well, because an empty pot just makes a lot of noise when you hit it, but it's making the noise that sometimes people need to hear, right? But it's that space of when you realize, like, God, there's got to be more to this than what I'm experiencing. That I think that emotional thing that you all were talking about, that they say black women are angry, or they're too sassy, or they too this, or they're too that, right? They're too much of something, right? if we look into it and said it's because you feel like your voice can't be heard that now you have to be on guard all the time, and you're not necessarily angry, but you're protecting, right? That now that if we go deeper and deeper and deeper into it, when you feel like you're not getting something that you deserve to get, want to get, or working towards to get, there is a space of frustration that feels stuck that could be looked on as depression. And so in the root of that depression is there's a sadness that's connected to the fear, that when you walk up to a woman in a environment where she feels she has to protect, that she's protecting so much outwardly that her inward isn't being taken care of. So that baseline that you're talking about of taking care of your hair, you know, I've known women who have said, girl, I need to take a shower in like 2 days because I gotta go, right? I was like, we have folds and crevices and parts that
so
get
many folds and
moist, and you know, it's in dark, and it needs to be washed. It needs to be oiled. It needs to be loved on. And when we're so far away from that center space, it's that stagnation that when we think about water, the water element and the water energy, you think about what's happening in the body in that meridian and go, oh, it could smell like stench. Right. And so that stench, you know, I'm moving into that space, is a depression.
Yeah.
Right? It really magnifies in your body. So
I think too, like, it also comes to, in certain cases, an understanding that you are in a protective mode and like some accountability and some action on your own part and how you play in that. Just because I feel like there was a time where I was definitely, if you can believe it, more sassy than what I am now.
I like it. And be as sassy as you need to.
And it's like I was being as sassy as I needed to, but I can also now see that my nervous system wasn't really ever at rest. And so it's like, as cute and as funny as the sassiness can be sometimes, I just feel like it's more fulfilling to my nervous system and to my own mental now to just, in moments where I can, reel it in a little bit. Just reel it in a little bit. It's like a softening to myself, really, because it's not about the other people. It's always just about kind of bringing myself back to that center point. Because I'm like, sometimes I'm like, it didn't really need all of that. I gave it a lot, and it didn't really need all of that. And on top of it not needing all of that, no one understood me better.
I think one of the things that through I'm listening to you guys, and one of the things that's sticking out for me the most is what Khadija said about giving up. Many times as, Black women, we don't feel that we have the space to actually give up, to actually surrender to a situation, right? I know I've been in that situation a lot. It's energy that has kept me going and building, where you figure that, oh my God, all these pots are spinning, you're the only one spinning them, and you know that if you put something down, all those pots are going to stop spinning, right? It's like you've gotten so accustomed to the activity that you don't realize, like Khadija was saying, that stillness is okay, because stillness is when you really get to see what you need to do, how many pots you need to spin,
Even if you need to spin a pot.
To spin a pot, you might need to do anything, right?
But I love the thing that she said about, I didn't really, after reflecting, it's like, maybe I didn't need to do that much.
Right.
Because people didn't even understand me.
Right.
Because it was coming from a space of, you didn't get a chance to dynamically sit in the experience that you were having. So now it's like roar. And that's the sassy, right?
Right.
And sassy to me is powerful and good, and it's like the spice that you can pour into, the meal that makes you. But when you pour too much salt or too much pepper or too much paprika or too much oregano or whatever,
well, there's
it
never
spoils
too
the
much
food.
pepper.
There is.
For you, Lexis.
I've had some meals.
And too much pepper can send you to the bathroom.
And it hurt from going on the other end. It hurt going down and it hurt coming up.
Hello. All right.
I gotta hit that point. So
I hope you never do.
I'm familiar with the too much pepper. I really am.
Never
I
do.
really am.
Oh my God. But one of the things too, let's talk about the fact that, we don't want to get too clinical with it, but the fact that even if we're going through a depression, it's really it's brushed off by us most of the time, you know, and
I have something. Yes.
We don't get to.
Yes.
We don't get to like to clinically assign ourselves to that fact that okay, we're experiencing depression,
Right.
and I of course it has a lot to do with, because we belong to the same community, right? It has a lot to do with how depression is stigmatized, or how mental health is equated to weakness in our community.
And then and what is weakness? Like, it's not okay to be weak?
Right.
See, I also kind of feel like we're having a generational divide.
Talk
right now.
Please.
Just because, I don't know, like, me and my homegirls, we're not scared to say, like, today, I'm depressed. You know, or like, I'm feeling very sad today, I'm feeling heavy today, like, we've cultivated a language, and that's why I'm saying specifically me and my friends have cultivated a language with one another to where we actively seek to share when we're not feeling at our best, so that other people, specifically the sisters that we're in sisterhood with, can share that with us. So it's like, for me, I think I've never really been scared to say, I have been scared to stop, for sure. Like, I'll give you that. I've been scared to stop. But I've never really strayed away from saying I'm sad, or I've never, like, I've always been able to recognize those moments of depression or like depressive states, or just when I'm not feeling at 100%, or when I'm not really serving.
Right.
And even if I'm not necessarily actionable in those things, I've always been able to recognize, like, oh, today is really just not that day.
Right.
Oh, this week is really just not that week.
Right.
Oh, that was a horrible year. A year, you know? And sometimes, like, I can see some of it while I'm in it, but then to really, like, once you step out of it, to go back and then to be able to reflect even with people and be like, yeah, girl, because it was a rough time. And she'd be like, I know, I was watching, I was just right there with you. But
I'm happy, and I'm not just saying I'm happy, like, I am joyful to hear that that is a commonplace thing, that the people who are coming behind me have found a way to find voice, to express their feelings. Right. Because I think the important part of that story, it's not really a divide, it's a connectivity, right?
Yeah.
And so when we look on at the people who are older than us, who have lived life a little bit more, right? That you get an example to look at and go, yes, that, definitely not that, right? And that has been the train of events for everyone, right? Like, I could look at my mother could look at her mother, my grandmother could look at her mother, right?
Right.
And everyone has either said, I'm not going to do those things, or I'm going to do those things, right?
And that's why sisterhood with, like, women that are older than you and younger than you is so important too.
So that means sisterhood in general.
In general,
let's not even talk about age.
But I mean, not age, but I just know that there are some women who will limit their sisterhood to certain age restrictions. So I just feel like for me, it's important always to have, like, sisters of all ages, because I do just think that there's, like you said, like a space that I don't know that you guys had even the time to create for yourself, realistically. And so it does become kind of important to, like, acknowledge that separation, like that reconnection that's happening now, but just that separation, because there are things within, like, my older sisters and even, like, my grandma and mom, like, oh, I can't even really be mad at you for, like, not feeling like you could give up, because it was just it was a completely warped concept to slow down. Like, they didn't see it, their imagination wasn't active enough or free enough from, like, trauma to imagine a world where they could slow down.
Or to recognize trauma.
Yeah, or to even recognize trauma. So it's like, now I can appreciate that, like, I very much am the reminder to some of my older sisters, like, but you don't have to do that.
Right.
But, but it's okay. Like, you can
slow
down.
that importance of sisterhood is, I mean, I look around at the people who I have in my life, and I've known them for, like, long, you know, where our children were in elementary school or babies or so forth, right? And now our children are your age or a little younger, right? And then I have sisters who I've met just recently, and for me recently is within the last 5 years or so, that the bond is so tight because it's not rooted in, girl, you remember when we went through that thing that last time and it was so hard, and yeah, we see it, and yes, but it's based on you've gone through that thing, whatever those things are, and you've come out with a deeper understanding of yourself that you can now express yourself in a way that is more healthy, that you could recognize trauma, that you could recognize that your life is not just based on trauma, right? It's based on different triumphs.
Right.
And that word of resilience that we have to keep going back to. Like, I remember someone used to say, oh man, you know, like you're like Superwoman. I said, absolutely not. Never give me that title because you're trying to kill me. Like, I don't want a cape. I want to be able to say that I can stop and lay down and go, this shit is hard. Like, I walk into this space lots of times, like, I quit. And I mean it. Like, I'm not saying like I quit lightly. Like, I'm like, this shit is hard and life is interesting how you navigate, but I get to say I quit. Not I quit forever, but in this moment, in this situation here, I want to say it to the people who I care about, to say, support me, catch me. I need to lean. You know, I need to lean into y'all because this feels really heavy. That I don't think is something even generationally that is in the world, right? And so when I say not having the space to feel soft, like when we go into the health system and we go into hospitals and you see a black woman on a bed, you see another person of another race on a bed, whether it's white, Asian, Chinese, whatever, the black woman's pain threshold is considered differently than the other woman. Right. Somehow we don't need as much, we can handle more, and why we find ourselves in spaces of death.
Right.
Because we're not being listened to.
So just to tie what I was saying about the emotionality representation that is put on us by other people outside of our culture.
The whom.
That
who are
is,
we invisible
that
to?
is the whom. And that is the connection that I was trying to make.
I don't think about those people though.
Right. No, it's not.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
So it's not that we're thinking about the people, but we do have to function in a society, right? We're not just functioning within a culture of black people. We are functioning within a societal culture. And when we move into spaces where you are depicted a certain way, guess what? It can actually communicate your it could actually what's the word I'm looking for?
I'm not sure.
It could
take your time, we'll wait.
It could your safety becomes a little bit compromised.
Absolutely.
Right. So
for sure.
You understand? So that's
yeah.
As in, like you said, like as in childbirth, right? In the hospital, many times they don't feel as though we're feeling the things like you said that we feel.
Yes. And so the empowerment space of being able to hold space within these circles that we create within ourselves, right? That we can now speak to our sisters. We've read books. We've heard the podcast. We lived the thing. We drank the tea. All the things, right? Now we're standing a little stronger within our process. So when another person comes to you and like, I remember, like, breastfeeding used to be such a challenge, right? It was like such a challenge to convince people that it was okay to breastfeed your child. I don't even know if that's still a thing because everyone around me is just an assumption that you can breastfeed, right? But I remember my mom insisting to me that, oh God, them children are not gonna get enough food if you breastfeed. And I was just like, no, I think I'm gonna do this, right? I'm gonna search my way through it.
Did you feel any pressure with that, her saying that?
No, I think I also had a community of women who were already breastfeeding. I grew up like going back and forth to Guyana and seeing my cousins breastfeed their children. And so I was very familiar with that, but that wasn't my mom's thing, right? She came to America. She had me by herself here. And so all the books said, get Similac. And so all of my learnings and teaching was, don't give your child Similac. Right. Don't give your child these, powder, the chemical induced white things.
Synthetic stuff.
Feed them from your body, right? And feed your body. And so but I learned that from being part of community that was saying that was the way. And so I think that's what the space of depression, to me, I don't think it's not that it exists in black women and it's not recognized, right? I think not enough opportunity for people who are going through a thing to be able to reach out to community to say, hey, I'm going through this thing. So the resources that are there will be given. Because even though you may be speaking to your friends, right? And we may be speaking to our friends. The difficulty that I've watched people have to just get a therapist now, right? To find someone who they connect with in their minds first to say, I'm going to go do this thing. I'm going to go help. I'm going to admit to myself that I need this help, or I admit myself that I need to, and now you have to figure out how you're going to pay for it. Now you can figure out your insurance. Now you can figure out to convince someone that, hey, I'm going through something. I may need more than just a therapist. I may need a psychologist, right? And the way that we maneuver through this healthcare system, and I'm using that with big, gigantic quotes on the side because it's very unhealthy, right? It doesn't leave space for us to feel the softness, to say, I'm going to pause a moment and take time for myself, right? And so within that, we're, as a therapist, right, massage, Thai yoga, massage, and all the things that we do, where do you find it when you touch a Black woman's body? Yes. Where do you find that those hidden, tucked in corner, painful spaces that you hold where nobody else is seeing? Where do you find it? And when you find it and you move it, what is the reaction? Got the moans up. As I always do.
I can think of 3 places just immediately.
I know, right?
The shoulders, like the traps. There's always burden, just laid right there. The heart is always heavy, closed, broken. Something is always something right here. That's why we have to get so deep into the breath. I won't even touch the womb because that's his own thing. But the feet. It's honestly the feet. And it's not so much a thing of like that they're on their feet all day, you know what I mean? Because I feel like for a lot of people, they're not as much on their feet all day. There's a lot of like sedentary lifestyle. People are sitting more. But with the feet, there is just an overall sensitivity, almost like they've been walking on eggshells, or not really like stepping into their full power, you know, things like that. So I feel like I always see the shoulders, the heart, the feet are always their most sensitive areas. It's where I have to spend some extra breath, some extra intention, whether it's like on their side or on my side, or guiding them into it being on their side. Because it's a lot of broken hearts too in the Black women. Like a lot of broken hearts. Yeah, a lot of disappointment.
Yeah. So
You trying to say something, Nikki, in the corner? Quietly? You're right there. We know you're there. What you want to say?
And broken hearts are not always in a romantic sense.
Typically
9.9 times out of 10, it's not a romantic broken heart. I would say realistically, it's like Jameelah said, it's like disappointment from a number of sources. I won't even dare to limit the amount of sources that have truly let down and broken the hearts of Black women. Like, if you think too hard, you'll break your own heart. You know what I mean?
Or if you break promises. You know, you promise yourself, whatever the promise is, I'm not going to do this anymore, or I'm going to go do this thing, and you feel like you didn't get a chance to fulfill that. Those are those little moments that it builds into your body, right? But going back to the movement of the therapy of Thai massage, Thai yoga massage, to name it correctly, what particular stretch or what particular touch do you find that opens or has opened up an experience for someone to be able to release, and what does that release look like?
So I do in a sauna, or like a position in Thai yoga massage is fish pose, and so it's like a heart opener. So I have them lay back, and my feet are in their lower back, and there's like a pillow supporting like the thoracic and cervical spine. And then most people, when they lay back in the fish pose, they're like this.
Because they're protecting over this.
Because they're protecting. They don't want it to open up too much. They think they're going to lose their breath. It's like a number of things. So then we have to open the shoulders, relax the arms. Then the head will start to drop back. Then you'll see their lungs and chest start to expand.
I love it.
The brows will start to relax, and then I go deep into like a head massage while they're in this position. That is really, I think, for them. I've had people cry. I've had some people like scream. I've had some people start to shake. I've had some people just go into a very like deep and internal silence, which is different than just like a room of silence. They're like an internal silence. But that fish pose, anything that opens the heart and activates some of that energy going up the spine, it's overwhelming.
Because it's also that trust, right? They have to trust
Yeah.
because you're trusting that someone is allowing to be there to support you.
That's why it
which
comes
is
in the
issue.
middle too, because honestly, from the moment I ask you to take your first breath, I'm attempting and praying to establish a trust between the two of us, and for you to also like establish a trust within your body that will allow you to surrender. So for a lot of people, the Thai massage is the only time that they feel like they've really like let go and surrender.
So if you're liking our conversation, listening to us right now, you can like, share, invite others to watch us, comment, because we want to know what it is that our nieces and nephews are thinking in the comments. How do you guys deal with depression? How does it show up for you? Do you feel as though you're open and in tune enough to your body in its listening to hear those emotions that might, produce that sort of state for you? So tell us, because we want to hear. So back to what we were saying.
Where do you find it? Like when you're in your practice?
So I'm a womb work girl.
Yes.
So it shows up a lot for me in that thoracic cage, that sacral area. That I like working medials in legs.
Medial how? What do you mean?
Like really up in that inguinal space without getting too intimate in your private space. But I think as a therapist, we have the skill as far as knowing how to drape a person so that they don't feel uncomfortable, or
safe.
just coming, just making them feel safe, just so that you could do really guttural work on a person, without crossing any threshold, of like privacy.
So safety is important.
Yeah, of
right?
course.
Creating
When
that
you're
safe
doing,
space,
especially if you're doing womb work, you want to do your best work when you're working that sacral area. Because for women, we carry a lot there, but I'm noticing with clients sometimes if they do not have like a direct pathology in that area, they
completely
don't
ignore the area.
even
it's disconnected.
certain areas don't even exist for us. So abdominal work is a really big thing for me when I'm working clients. I tend to actually ask, and a lot of women are surprised when I ask.
Because then you start to palpate the area, and they're like,
Right.
"Oh my
I didn't know
gosh,
this.
this is
Right.
so tender."
Right.
Oh my, and
You
she's
know,
like, "Yes,
yes.
sister."
And
yes.
especially going off of the conversation that I might have had with them before, the conversation kind of allows you to help them make their own connection through the touch that they receive. And I think that's what I like about doing womb work and finding those hidden or silenced, spaces or low volume spaces, I tend to call them, because we turn those
some
things
things
off
down,
in order to function, right? So yeah, but
Because it's being depressed.
yeah,
down.
we're right. We're suppressing them. We're actually pushing things away. And like Lexis said, the back, that back area, we put so many things to the back of us in order to progress, to move forward,
Right.
to keep that wood energy going.
Right.
That that water, is really what we keep silence. That whole thing with still waters really run deep. It's true, because in order to just present this facade, and I don't really want to say facade, but that is what we're presenting. It's a mask.
Yeah.
We have all this stuff, at the bottom jumping up, and we're really not.
How do people, when you give them that space, what does the release look like?
I get criers all the time.
People crying.
You know, I get criers before I touch them. You know, I look at people and they start crying. You know,
it's a release.
Because it's a release. You know, they know. I think one of the things that I notice in our community that sisters really appreciate is the fact that I am personable. You know, I see us, you know, and I let you know that I'm seeing you. Yeah. So, it gives them a chance to actually receive the grace that they think they are not worthy of.
Come on, power.
You know? So and that's why I like massage therapy so much for us. I love massage therapy for us because it unmasks
we get the least
so much.
Too.
You understand?
Well, touch, right?
Yeah.
Because the technicality of touch is that you have to feel, right? And there's this term that I've heard my grandmother and my mother, they always say, like, all who don't hear is going to feel, right? All who don't hear.
That was a threat.
Must feel, right. And
but
so,
it's true, though.
But let's take the threat out of it for a moment and think of it as a gift, right?
Right.
Because if you are listening and if you are hearing yourself, right? You hearing what's happening in your body, right? You're gonna feel. But if you're not listening, then the feel is gonna come anyway. And that feel, the hearing is like a little whisper. Like, hey, you know, this doesn't feel right. I should check in. By the time you ignore those voices, the feel is like pain. It gets your attention, right? And so if we magnify that inward, when I touch people, it's understanding that you've been ignoring something for a long time. So my respect to that is, as one of my teachers, Emery Moore, he said to me, he was teaching me like years ago some movements, right? And he said, be careful of taking away a person's pain too quickly, because sometimes the pain is the only thing that's holding them, right? The anger sometimes is the only thing that's keeping you upright. And if you pull that away,
they become undone, right?
Undone.
I feel like that kind of speaks to why sometimes I only see people once for Thai massage. Because I've definitely had people who I just like, during the whole session, I could just feel everything. I could feel everything. And then there's a point where you can see them like reacting to either what they're feeling or they can sense that I'm sensing something. And so then typically those people after the Thai massage don't say anything to me. Like I'll like give them, you know, my takeaway, and I'll say, do you have any questions? Is there anything that you'd like to share? And they won't even speak, just and processing. I don't see those people again. I just don't.
What do you think that is?
I mean,
I didn't disrupt it. I can't cuss on here. I'm sorry.
You can.
I done disrupted a lot of shit, like in their bodies. So it's just like a lot of things are moving, a lot of feelings are coming up. They're not fully comfortable. They consented to the massage, yes, but they didn't necessarily understand. Though you come in and I say, listen, it's physical, but it's energetic, especially because that is the true nature of Thai massage. Like I'm definitely taught more from an energetic principle, like even as far as the loving kindness that you must exude each time that you go in to give massage.
But even to interrupt you, even before you did Thai massage, you were moving through life in that way.
Yeah, I was already moving like that with people. So then to like double it down with touch, like you said, it can be a bit overwhelming because if you already make people feel seen and then you can help people to feel, because I can't make you feel, but if I can help you to feel, then that can be a bit overwhelming. So I think it's just an overwhelming process.
It is.
And then there's not often language for them to express, or they don't have the language or don't feel comfortable with the language.
And they're not familiar with the compassion. Right? They're not familiar that so someone, you said you get criers, people see you immediately and they, you know, they feel seen, right? You're ready for that to a certain extent. You know, it's like, oh my God, I think I'm gonna cry. Let me stop myself, right? The amount of time people move to a space where they feel they have to stop themselves from being able to release is because they know like the threshold that if they walk through, they may not be ready
for the work, right?
For the work, right? And so my touch usually it comes from a space of as a conversation, right? And my touch, I usually start touching people at the back of their neck, really to connect that whole this mind and the rest of your body.
Right.
And to let you know that you are definitely in control to this whole process.
Right.
Before I tell you anything or hear anything through my hands about what's happening with your body, is to really get people to realize that, take a deep breath, smell this essential oil, and just stay steady because you're in control. You don't have to release any more than you need to, because you still may need to hold on to some of this and process as you're going through it. It's like a roller coaster, right? You go all the way up and you dip off. You no more pain in your back, no more pain in your shoulder, but now you're left with, what caused this? And are you ready to really face what caused it, right? Those are the things that I think when we bring in all the work, we bring in the massage, we bring in the acupuncture, we bring in movement, we bring in, breath, we bring in meditation, we bring in walking, but first we accept the fact that something is happening, right? And that's what I feel, to wrap up this whole concept of, where does this hold for Black women who are feeling depression but aren't being, even allowing themselves to recognize that exists, is to accept the fact that something's happening.
Right.
And it's okay to feel that something, even if you don't understand.
Right.
Right. And it's okay to verbally or come in and say to someone, yo, I quit, right? And be in a safe enough space that you've curated with people that they know you're not quitting, you just feel overwhelmed right now. What you need? You need some water?
Yeah.
You need some tea? What you need? You need some pop up?
You hungry?
What you hungry? Right? What you need? Right? Those are the relationship spaces that allow for the depression to not become so isolating and overwhelming that you can't just go, yo, I feel sad. I just feel sad today.
I just want the Black women to give themselves permission to feel sad. Like, all the affirmations that people say, it's like, I am deserving of this. You also deserve to feel a little sad sometimes. You also deserve to have a low energy day. You deserve.
And you can fill in that sentence of I feel into whatever it is, and not have to feel judged like you're not enough because
or you're not at a certain level.
And what is that?
Right. You see? Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of times that's what it is, because we sometimes have counterparts, and because we have social media, and because we have all these orbits outside of our personal universe.
Talk about it.
Right? And we're supposed to govern our personal universe, but we let all these other little planets kind of dictate how we move. Sometimes it can get...
You saw that. Planets and personal planets and universes. Love it.
Yeah, it gets a little bit, overwhelming.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we can do, though, within the sisterhood, to make that connection between the generations so that there's no separation,
for sure.
Right, is our young girls that are coming up. We have to teach them how to recognize things like that within themselves through teaching them it's okay to feel. Like you said before, you guys were saying that before.
And championing the space that, no, I don't need to know the words.
Right.
I don't need to know all the words or all the things, but I just need to know that I'm feeling what I'm feeling. Yeah. This was good.
It was good.
This was good.
It was good.
Lexis,
Thank you.
You are a whole guest.
This is good, right?
Nice.
Nieces and nephews.
Yes.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah, it's a really good conversation. So after this, we hope that everyone who has been viewing us today, well, I always think that this is live. When I say live, like it's Insta,
Well, whatever day you're viewing it, it's today in your life. In your universe, it's today.
It's today.
Because you set the time on your plan.
I'm really just waiting for the part that I get to say. So go ahead. Say the thing that you're going to say so I can say my favorite part. That's it.
Like, share, comment, and subscribe by banging the bell.
Bang the bell. That's the part.
Bang the bell.
Bang the bell. Just love it.
We love that part. Okay.
I can't.
Love it. But this was a nice conversation.
Yes,
and share your thoughts with us, please.
Peace, power.